wake to the soft gray of dawn seeping through lace curtains. The room smells faintly of lavender water and coal smoke from the streets below. The air is cold, just enough to make you pull the wool blanket a little higher before you rise. The faint toll of the church bell marks 6 o'clock. It's a new day in Victorian London. You sit upon the edge of your narrow bed and feel the wooden floor chill beneath your feet. The servant downstairs will soon bring the morning coal to light the hearth. Until then, you wrap yourself in your dressing gown. The walls are quiet, save for the faint tick of the mantel clock, that steady rhythm that reminds you that time, like reputation, must be carefully kept. Victorian mornings begin not with haste but with restraint. The ritual of washing, dressing, and greeting the day is governed by unseen expectations. The pitcher of cold water waits in the porcelain basin. You pour it carefully, the splash echoing softly, and wash your face. The shock of cold makes you breathe a little deeper, a moment of wakefulness in an otherwise hushed house. Downstairs, the servant stokes the fire. You hear her soft footsteps, the creak of the floorboards, and the faint clink of iron tongs. You will not speak to her unless necessary. Not out of cruelty, but because society prefers silence between classes unless it serves a purpose. Everyone has their role, and stepping beyond it brings discomfort, even suspicion. You dress slowly, layer upon layer, linen chemise, corset laced tight, petticoats whispering as they fall into place. Each movement feels deliberate, a dance between propriety and constraint. In this age, modesty is virtue, and virtue is survival. A woman's reputation can be lost in a glance, a man's in a careless word. When you finally descend the staircase, the light through the windows grows golden, touching the brass frames of portraits and the edge of the polished banister. Outside, the muffled sounds of the street begin to stir. Horses, vendors, the distant whistle of a milkman. Life in the city is already unfolding, yet inside the pace remains still and deliberate. You take tea quietly. The faint aroma of bergamot mingles with the coal smoke that drifts through the open window. You listen to the world breathe, and in that stillness, you understand that this life is not about passion or excitement. It is about order, balance, appearances. The very rhythm of existence depends upon the rules that no one dares to break. As the morning light grows stronger, so does your awareness of how deeply those rules reach, into posture, into words, into thought itself. You are never simply yourself here. You are always someone's daughter, someone's neighbor, someone's example. The calm of the morning conceals a world of constant quiet performance. You sip your tea, and for a moment, everything feels perfectly still, just as it should be. The morning continues, and with it comes the gentle pressure of manners, invisible yet ever present. In Victorian society, silence carries meaning. Every pause, every glance, every hesitation is a message carefully wrapped in politeness. You walk into the drawing room, its air perfumed with potpourri and faintly smoky from last night's lamp. A piano sits near the window, its keys dusted, waiting. It's not yet time for music. The morning is for quiet conversation, for correspondence, for contemplation. On the small writing desk, you find the tools of communication: ink, nib, paper. Letters are lifelines here, each word chosen with the precision of lacework. You write to a friend about the weather, the season, a recent charity event. You never write about what you truly feel. Emotion, like flesh, must be concealed beneath proper attire. When you fold the letter and seal it with wax, the scent of warm tallow fills the air. A servant will deliver it later. You sit back and listen to the faint rattle of a passing carriage outside. The driver calls out to his horses, a brief burst of life amid the hush of civility. There are rules for everything. How to sit, how to hold a teacup, how to enter a room. You recall your mother's voice, soft yet firm, reminding you that a lady must never slouch, never speak too loudly, never laugh in public unless invited by her company. You had practiced walking with a book balanced on your head, the way every well-bred girl must. In this world, silence is safety. To speak one's mind risks the flutter of scandal. To speak too little risks appearing dull. And so, conversation becomes an art of saying nothing beautifully. You rise from the desk and walk to the window. Outside, the fog still lingers, carrying the distant bells of St. Paul's Cathedral. Children hurry along the cobblestones in their uniforms. mothers holding baskets wrapped in cloth, men tipping their hats as they pass. The city hums quietly, like a dream half remembered. Inside, you breathe the still air of the room, the faint warmth of the hearth, the perfume of roses fading in the vase. You feel a calm weight settle over you, as if time itself has slowed. Here, in this life, serenity is found not in freedom, but in discipline. You know that later, when guests arrive, you'll smile softly and offer polite words that conceal more than they reveal. You'll sit straight, your hands folded gently, your voice a murmur of composure. You'll play your part, as everyone must. For now, you close your eyes and let the soft ticking of the clock carry you deeper into the day. Steady, proper, endlessly composed. The silence feels almost like peace. The clock on the mantel has struck 9. Its steady chime floats through the air like a reminder. Time to prepare for the day's duties, and to become once more the person society expects you to be. You walk to the tall mirror in the corner of your room, its gilt frame slightly worn from years of dusting. The reflection that gazes back is familiar yet distant. A face pale from the cold air, eyes soft but cautious. You are neither yourself nor entirely apart from yourself. You are an image, shaped by custom. The maid helps lace your corset. The sound of the laces tightening is sharp and rhythmic, echoing softly in the quiet space. With each pull, your breath grows shallower, your posture straighter. You stand taller, though the pressure across your ribs reminds you that grace often comes at the cost of comfort. Layer upon layer follows, the chemisette, the petticoats, the bodice. Each piece serves a purpose beyond fashion. To be properly dressed is to display control, dignity, and modest restraint. Nothing too bright, nothing too revealing, nothing that calls unnecessary attention. The Victorian way demands harmony between fabric and virtue. You choose a gown of muted blue, not too bold for morning visits, yet elegant enough for polite company. The fabric sighs softly as you move, whispering secrets of silk and patience. Around your neck rests a small cameo brooch, its smooth surface cool against your skin. It belonged to your mother, and before her to hers. You feel a quiet lineage in its weight, a thread that ties you to all the women who performed this same quiet ritual before you. From downstairs, you hear the faint bustle of the house awakening further, the clink of china, the distant hum of conversation among servants. The city beyond your window is now fully alive, carriage wheels rattling, street vendors calling out the day's wares, the air carrying the mingled scents of smoke, bread, and rain. You draw your shawl around your shoulders and glance once more in the mirror. Every fold of fabric, every strand of hair, every faint smile has its place. Decorum is not just about clothing. It is a posture of the soul. You remind yourself that one must appear serene even when one's thoughts are anything but. Stepping into the corridor, you catch sight of the portraits lining the wall, stern faces of ancestors, all fixed in their proper attire. None smile. In their eyes lies the same unspoken command. Be respectable, be measured, be composed. You feel both watched and guided by their silent presence. The parlor awaits. Its fire crackles softly, casting gentle shadows across the polished surfaces. You sit at the writing table again, smoothing your skirts beneath you. Soon you will receive visitors, perhaps a neighbor calling for tea, or a gentleman friend seeking polite conversation. Each encounter, no matter how trivial, is a performance within the grand theater of manners. Your hands rest lightly in your lap. The fingers are steady, the posture poised. You recall once again your mother's lessons. Never fidget, never cross your arms, never allow restlessness to betray the stillness expected of you. There is comfort in these rituals. They wrap you in certainty, like fabric drawn tight across the chest. Yet beneath it all, a quiet part of you wonders, if every gesture is measured, every word rehearsed, what remains that is truly yours? A gust of wind brushes against the window pane, making the glass tremble faintly. You turn toward it, watching a flurry of dust dance in the slanting light. The sound of life outside fades into a soft murmur. You exhale slowly, feeling the corset's firm grip remind you of your boundaries, both physical and invisible. You adjust the folds of your dress, and with one last glance at your reflection, you whisper inwardly a small thought of rebellion, delicate and hidden like a secret bloom in winter. Then you rise. The morning has given way today. There is no room now for imagination, only grace, composure, and the endless rhythm of propriety. As you move toward the door, the clock strikes again, 10 clear, measured tones. The hour passes, but the stillness remains. Outside your window, the world carries on, unaware of the quiet endurance behind every polished appearance. You breathe, smooth your gloves, and step into the light of another perfectly proper day. And somewhere deep within, a sigh escapes unnoticed, soft as silk, fleeting as dust in morning air. The day drifts forward, steady and unhurried. By the time the clock chimes 1, a pale golden light filters through the lace curtains, softening every edge in the room. The air is warmer now, not from the hearth, but from the faint life that hums through the streets beyond. It is the hour of calls. The delicate, intricate social dance that governs an entire class of people. One measured knock, one polite exchange, one flawless impression. You stand before the mirror again, adjusting your gloves. They are ivory, freshly pressed, smooth as satin against your skin. To visit without gloves would be unthinkable, indecorous, even scandalous. Each detail of your appearance whispers to the world who you are, or at least who you are meant to be. Your carriage waits outside. The sound of horses' hooves against the cobblestone echoes up to your window, rhythmic, patient, a heartbeat of the city. When you step outside, the air carries the faint scent of coal smoke, mingled with the sweetness of rain-soaked lilacs from a nearby garden. The driver tips his hat. You return a gentle nod. Inside the carriage, the world feels distant, as though life itself moves past you rather than with you. Through the glass, you watch rows of brick houses, chimneys, and shop signs glide by. The streets are busy but not hurried. A flower seller calls out in a soft Cockney accent. A newsboy waves his papers. A group of children play marbles in the shadow of a lamppost. Yet within this moving cocoon, time seems to stretch, softened by the steady rhythm of the horses. You breathe deeply, letting the motion lull your thoughts. You are on your way to call upon Mrs. Ashworth, a family acquaintance of unerring reputation. You will not stay more than 15 minutes. That would be improper. Anything longer suggests intimacy. Anything shorter, insult. When you arrive, the Ashworth home greets you with quiet dignity. Ivy curling up the stone walls, brass polished to perfection. The maid admits you and leads you into the drawing room. The scent of tea and beeswax fills the air. Everything gleams. The piano, the china, the silver clock upon the mantel. Mrs. Ashworth rises as you enter. Her dress, pale lilac trimmed in lace, rustles softly as she extends her gloved hand. "How pleasant to see you," she says. Her smile perfectly measured, neither too warm nor too cold. "And you as well," you reply, curtsying lightly, your voice calm and composed. You sit together upon the edge of the sofa, exchanging pleasantries. The conversation is a tapestry woven from caution and charm. The weather, the state of her garden, a mention of a cousin recently engaged. Never politics, never religion, certainly never emotion. A small tea tray is brought in, steam rising gently from the pot. You stir your cup 3 times quietly, ensuring no clink of the spoon touches porcelain. Every motion feels deliberate, rehearsed. You sip. The warmth spreads softly through your chest. A reminder that beneath these layers of courtesy, you are still human, still warm, still alive. Mrs. Ashworth shows you her embroidery, delicate stitches forming a wreath of roses. You admire it sincerely. The conversation drifts like the slow fall of snow, graceful, uneventful, oddly soothing. There is comfort in knowing exactly what to say, what to admire, when to smile. The rules hold you both in their gentle embrace, keeping the chaos of true feeling safely at bay. When the clock on the mantel strikes 1:15, you rise. "Such a lovely visit," you say softly. "The pleasure was mine," she answers. Her words a mirror of yours. You exchange curtsies, hands gloved, eyes polite, and step back into the carriage. The air outside is cooler now, a faint breeze stirring the hem of your skirt. You exhale, almost imperceptibly, as if shedding a layer of invisible pressure. Inside the carriage once again, the world moves gently around you. You pass by the park, iron gates glinting in the sunlight. Ladies in pastel gowns strolling beneath bare autumn trees, their parasols glowing faintly like pale moons. Somewhere a child laughs, and for a brief moment, the sound feels almost rebellious in its freedom. The horses slow as the carriage turns homeward. You rest your gloved hands upon your lap and watch as the streets narrow, the buildings lean closer, and the sky above begins to turn the color of pewter. By the time you step through your own front door, the scent of coal and bread drifts warmly from the kitchen. The stillness of home wraps around you like a shawl. You hang your gloves neatly on their stand, aware that your visit, like every visit, has been a small, wordless negotiation of reputation. You did not offend. You did not linger. You maintained the fragile balance upon which your world rests. In the soft quiet of the drawing room, you look toward the window where the daylight fades, and you think, perhaps, that all of life here is like that tea, warm for a moment, then gone, leaving only the faintest trace of calm behind. You close your eyes and let the sound of the evening carriage wheels fade into distance. The day has moved on, and so must you, quietly, gracefully, perfectly in step with the world around you. The afternoon light has softened now, turning the drawing room into a hush of amber and shadow. The air smells faintly of tea leaves and the fading perfume of roses from the morning's vase. The clock ticks in the background, that eternal, patient rhythm that marks every hour of propriety. It is the time of day when conversation drifts toward gentler subjects, when visitors come not to conduct business, but to linger politely, to exchange the small courtesies that sustain the delicate balance of reputation and affection. You have been told that Mr. Whitaker may call today. A gentleman of respectable family and quiet manners. Your mother approves of him. The neighbors speak well of him. In Victorian society, such endorsements are as precious as gold. You sit near the fire, gloved hands folded neatly in your lap. Every movement feels like choreography. The tilt of your head, the posture of your shoulders, even the calm stillness of your breath. The flicker of the flame catches upon your brooch, scattering tiny sparks of light that dance against the wallpaper. Then, a knock. 3 soft raps upon the door. Your heart gives the faintest stir. The maid enters first, her expression neutral as she announces, "Mr. Whitaker, madam." He steps into the room with a courteous bow, removing his hat. His boots shine faintly from the damp streets outside, and his coat carries the crisp scent of November air. You rise and offer a curtsy, your smile gentle but restrained. Words flow like water, shallow but clear. "How pleasant the weather has been today," he begins. "Yes," you reply softly. "London is almost kind when it forgets its rain." He smiles. That small, proper smile that reveals little but feels like sunlight after a long morning of clouds. You motion toward the settee, and he takes a seat at an acceptable distance, close enough for conversation, far enough for propriety. There are rules here, invisible yet unbreakable. A lady never initiates direct intimacy in speech. A gentleman must not linger too long nor gaze too freely. Even the eyes are taught restraint. Meeting briefly, then retreating with quiet grace. The conversation drifts. Music, books, the new exhibition at the Royal Academy. Each word feels chosen, polished, placed. There are no confessions here, no raw laughter, no bold declarations. Yet beneath the surface, something gentle stirs. A shared understanding that emotion, though hidden, still breathes between the lines. You find yourself watching the way he holds his teacup. Steady, deliberate, the faintest tremor of nerves beneath composure. He asks if you enjoy reading, and you mention your fondness for poetry. Careful not to sound too romantic, yet unable to resist a small warmth in your voice when you speak of Keats. He nods, his eyes softening. "A man could lose himself in such verses," he says, "if he were not careful." You smile faintly. "Some things are worth being lost in, I suppose." The words hover in the air, fragile and bright as candlelight. Neither of you speaks for a moment. The silence between you is not awkward but tender. A quiet pause where meaning hides, dressed in modesty. When the maid enters with more tea, you both return to safe ground. The conversation resumes its polite rhythm. He asks after your family. You mention your father's work. The air settles once more into calm civility. When he finally rises to leave, you stand as well. He bows, offers the faintest nod of farewell. "It has been a privilege," he says softly, "to share such a pleasant afternoon." You curtsy, your voice barely above a whisper. "The pleasure was mine." After he departs, the silence folds back around you like a shawl. The faint scent of his cologne lingers, cedar, rain, and something faintly warm. You sit once more by the fire, the tea cooling beside you, and allow your thoughts to drift. You know that courtship, like everything else in this world, moves with deliberate patience. No sudden gestures, no open declarations, just a steady exchange of glances and phrases, each one small enough to hide within a heartbeat. Outside, the street lamps begin to glow. The fog settles low upon the cobblestones, wrapping the world in soft silver. Somewhere, the distant clip-clop of horses echoes like a lullaby. You gaze into the fire and think of all the unspoken feelings that live beneath polite conversation, how they flicker quietly, safely contained, yet endlessly alive. And as the evening deepens, you feel that calm again, that familiar balance between yearning and restraint, between warmth and stillness. The rules may bind you, but they also protect you from the chaos of raw emotion. And in this society, peace often looks a little like silence. You close your eyes. The fire hums softly, the clock ticks on. Tomorrow he may call again, and everything will begin quietly once more. The morning returns pale and gray, carrying with it the hush of another ordinary day. The air holds the scent of damp coal and soap, a reminder that the heart of every Victorian home beats not in the drawing room, but below the stairs. You stir awake to the faint creak of the house coming to life. Down in the servants' quarters, fires are being lit, kettles are boiling, and boots are being polished until they shine like black mirrors. The hum of quiet industry rises through the floorboards, rhythmic and reliable, the unseen pulse of order. You pull your shawl tighter around your shoulders as you listen. It is comforting in a way, this predictable music of domestic labor. Every sound has meaning, the soft clang of a coal scuttle, the muffled thud of footsteps along the back corridor, the distant rush of a broom sweeping dust from stone. When you descend to the breakfast room, the world above stairs is perfectly composed, table set, tea steaming, bread warm beneath its silver cover. The miracle of perfection happens here every morning, and yet it is never spoken of. The hands that make it possible are invisible by design. In Victorian society, a home is a small kingdom, and its servants are the quiet machinery that keeps it running. The butler stands as its sentinel, dignified and unreadable, ensuring every clock is wound, every door attended. The housekeeper, firm, composed, oversees her domain with a precision that borders on artistry. Beneath her, the maids, the cook, the scullery girl, each with her place, her rhythm, her duty. You nod politely to the maid who pours your tea. Her eyes are lowered, her expression blank. To speak too warmly might embarrass her. To speak too coldly might wound. You choose the middle, a simple thank you, gentle, brief. She curtsies, whispers yes, miss, and glides away as silently as she came. You imagine, sometimes what life must be like for her, rising before dawn, finishing after dark, hands red from scrubbing linen, voice seldom heard unless spoken to. Her world exists in the margins of yours, yet without it, yours could not exist at all. Down below, in the servants' hall, laughter sometimes stirs. You've heard it faintly through the floorboards, that low ripple of human warmth that belongs entirely to them. There, the rules are different. Hierarchy still reigns, but softened by familiarity. A maid may laugh with a footman, or whisper secrets by candlelight. Their world, though bound by labor, breathes more freely than yours. You sip your tea, listening to the quiet above and the faint life below. It strikes you how the entire household is built on layers. Silence upon noise, order upon motion, calm upon toil. Each person performs their part in this invisible symphony, and together it becomes something almost holy in its precision. Later in the morning, you descend the narrow back staircase, rarely used by those of your class, to speak with Mrs. Holloway, the housekeeper. The air grows cooler as you go down. The light changes too, dimmer, yellowed by gas. The scent of polished onions and warm bread mixes together, rich and real. Mrs. Holloway greets you with a nod, her gray hair tucked neatly under her cap. Her manner is respectful but not subservient. She has run this household longer than you have lived within it. "Morning, miss," she says, her voice steady. "Good morning, Mrs. Holloway," you reply. You've everything well in hand as always. Her lips twitch into the faintest smile. "We try, miss. It's the trying that keeps the house together." You speak briefly about linens, about the arrival of coal, about a new maid expected to join the staff. The conversation is practical, But beneath it lies a quiet understanding, a mutual respect born of necessity. She manages an empire of shadows, unseen yet essential. As you climb back upstairs, you pass through that invisible boundary where worlds divide. The light grows whiter, the air less fragrant, the silence more deliberate. When you reach the landing, it feels almost as if the noise and warmth of the servants' hall were a dream you imagined. In the parlor once again, everything is still. The silver gleams. The chairs wait in orderly silence. The fire burns evenly. You sit by the window and gaze outside, watching a milkman lead his horse down the street. The sound of the city feels distant, muffled by curtains and glass. You think of the maid polishing the banister behind you, the cook kneading bread below, the boy scrubbing boots in the scullery. Each one unseen, each one vital. Together they create the illusion of effortless peace that surrounds you now. In this world, appearances are truth. The gentle quiet you live in is not the absence of sound, but the product of endless invisible effort. And though you may never say it, aloud you feel a soft gratitude for that hidden hum of life that moves beneath your feet. As the clock strikes 10, you close your eyes for a moment and listen. Really listen to the faint whisper of motion that holds your house together. It sounds like breathing, like patience, like faith. You open your eyes to the gentle order of your world, knowing that calm here is never natural. It is carefully made, every single day, and somewhere below, another fire is being stoked. And another day begins again, quietly, dependably, forever in rhythm with yours. Evening comes softly, drawn across the sky like a velvet curtain. The lamps glow pale gold behind frosted glass, and the faint hum of the city fades into a slower rhythm. Inside the house, the mood shifts, quieter, more deliberate. The day's work retreats below stairs, and the upstairs world prepares for its grandest ritual of all, dinner. You stand before your dressing table, the last light of dusk lingering on your reflection. The fire crackles gently in the hearth, casting long shadows that shimmer across the folds of your gown. Tonight's dress is of deep plum silk, its sheen alive in the flickering light. The corset tightens once again, each pull of the lace returning you to that narrow, perfect shape demanded by fashion. The faint scent of rosewater drifts from your hair. Dinner, in the Victorian world, is not merely a meal. It is theater. Every movement, every gesture, every pause is part of a performance that reveals who you are and how you belong. The table is your stage. Manners are your costume. The maid enters quietly, carrying a small silver tray. "The guest will be arriving shortly, miss." Her voice is careful, respectful. You nod, smoothing your gloves, and glance once more in the mirror. You remind yourself, shoulders back, chin level, expression serene. The body must obey before the mind can wander. Downstairs, the dining room glows with the soft radiance of candlelight. The air is scented faintly with beeswax, roasted meat, and the freshness of ironed linen. The long mahogany table gleams like still water beneath crystal chandeliers. Silver cutlery is arranged in perfect symmetry, each piece positioned by invisible precision. Guests arrive in measured procession. Coats removed, gloves tucked away, polite laughter filling the air like gentle music. The butler announces each name in his calm, resonant tone. Mr. and Mrs. Tillingham, Miss Hawthorne, Mr. Whitaker. His voice steadier tonight, his bow a shade deeper than before. You take your seat only when the host gestures. A lady never sits first. That would suggest presumption. Around you, the quiet clinking of cutlery, the whisper of fabric, and the subdued murmur of conversation weave together into a symphony of restraint. The first course arrives, soup, golden and fragrant. You hold your spoon at the proper angle, moving it outward, never toward you. To slurp, to linger, to make sound. These are small sins that mark the unrefined. You remember your lessons well, napkin in lap, elbows tucked, posture straight. Conversation begins with the safe topics: weather, travel, the Queen's latest public appearance. Each remark is measured, polished to smoothness. Mr. Whitaker speaks of a railway expansion north of Manchester. Mrs. Tillingham wonders if progress might soon make the world too fast, too loud. You listen, nodding with soft attentiveness, adding the occasional quiet, "indeed," or "how remarkable." The next course arrives, roast lamb with mint, vegetables arranged in perfect symmetry. The butler moves with silent precision, refilling glasses before they are empty. anticipating needs before they are spoken. He does not look at the guests directly. His gaze always remains slightly lowered. Mr. Whitaker glances toward you across the candles. His eyes catch the light, reflecting something warm, perhaps curious. You feel it, that faint quickening of heartbeat, that tiny ripple beneath the still surface. Yet your expression remains calm, polite, unreadable. You speak at last when the conversation turns to art. I visited the new gallery in Mayfair last week, you say softly. There's a landscape by Constable, sunlight over a river, clouds drifting like breath. One almost feels the wind upon one's skin. The table quiets for a moment. Then a few gentle nods, murmured agreement. Mr. Whitaker smiles faintly. I've seen it, he says. It reminds one that beauty often lies in stillness, not in spectacle. Something in his words lingers, a mirror of your own calm heart, perhaps. The meal continues. Dessert appears, steamed pudding, custard, sugared fruit. The sweetness fills the room with warmth. Laughter grows a little freer now. Wine loosens the edges of propriety just enough for smiles to feel genuine. When the final course is cleared, the host rises. The men will soon retire to the drawing room for port and cigars, while the ladies will move to the parlor for tea and conversation. It is the way of things, fixed and familiar. You follow the others, your gown whispering softly against the floor. In the parlor, the atmosphere lightens. The women's voices rise in lilting tones, hands gesturing delicately as they discuss fashion, charity, and the latest novels serialized in household words. You feel the warmth of the teacup against your palms, a small comfort, a fragile peace. From the adjoining room, faint laughter drifts, deeper, rougher, the sound of men at ease. The air smells of tobacco and brandy. You imagine their talk of politics, business, ambition, subjects forbidden to you, though they shape the world you live in. When they return at last, the evening begins its slow descent into farewells. Coats are fetched, carriages called, gloves drawn once more. Polite goodbyes float through the hall like soft echoes. Mr. Whitaker pauses near the door. His voice is low, almost uncertain. A most delightful evening, miss. Your company made it finer still. You smile, demure, yet your eyes meet his for a heartbeat longer than custom allows. You are kind to say so, sir. He bows, and then he is gone. The house grows still again. The fire burns low, casting sleepy shadows across the silver and glass. The servants begin their quiet restoration, clearing plates, polishing silver, folding linen, restoring every sign of life back into order. You stand by the window, gazing into the misted night. The faint scent of dinner still lingers, mingling with the crisp chill of autumn air. So much grace, so much beauty, all built upon silence and discipline. You breathe it in, the calm, the order, the quiet satisfaction of a day well performed. In the distance, a carriage wheel clatters softly down the cobblestone. A single candle flickers beside you, its flame steady and golden. The hour is late. The world is still, and for a fleeting moment, you let yourself wonder what life might feel like without rules, before letting the thought dissolve, as quietly as smoke rising from the wick. The night has settled over the city like a heavy velvet curtain. The gas lamps outside glow softly, their pale halos blurring through the mist that clings to every window pane. The world beyond is hushed now, the clatter of carriages fading into distance, the faint cries of street vendors replaced by the steady sigh of wind. Inside, the parlor feels like a cocoon of golden calm. The air carries the gentle scent of wax and roses, mingled with the faintest whisper of smoke from the dying hearth. You sit near the fire, your gown glimmering faintly in the low light, your hands resting lightly on your lap. Evenings in polite society are a delicate performance of warmth and restraint. The drawing room becomes a stage for gentle conversation, music, reading, or the soft murmur of shared civility. You are not meant to entertain, not exactly, but to maintain the illusion of gracious ease. Every glance, every silence, every smile is a language of its own. A few guests linger after dinner. Mrs. Linton, all pearl and poise. Her husband, with the grave calm of a man who speaks little but commands much. And of course Mr. Whitaker, seated a respectful distance away. He leans slightly forward in his chair, eyes catching the firelight, his manner quiet but attentive. The sound of the pianoforte begins. gentle notes filling the air like drifting feathers. Miss Linton plays with practiced grace, her fingers light upon the keys. The melody, soft and unhurried, wraps the room in tranquility. You close your eyes for a moment and let the sound carry you somewhere else, to a summer afternoon, perhaps, or to the banks of the Thames, where light dances on the water. When the music fades, polite applause follows, soft, brief, never exuberant. Even appreciation must obey moderation. Conversation resumes, its rhythm low and unbroken. Mrs. Linton speaks of a new novel, one of those moral tales about virtue tested by circumstance. Her voice floats through the air, even and composed. Mr. Whittaker responds with interest, his tone calm but edged with thoughtfulness. You listen, smiling faintly, adding a few quiet observations. The talk flows easily, yet beneath its surface runs the current of unspoken meaning. The way Mr. Whittaker glances toward you when he speaks of sincerity, or the way Mrs. Linton's eyes soften with understanding when she mentions kindness as a form of courage. You sense that this subtle, slow dance of words is where real intimacy lives in your world. Not in touch, not in declaration, but in the exchange of gentleness disguised as conversation. The clock on the mantel ticks softly, its hands gliding toward 10. A gentle warmth lingers in the air, the combination of candlelight, quiet laughter, and the faint murmur of voices woven like silk. You notice how everyone's movements grow smaller now, the folding of a fan, the smoothing of a cuff, the sip of cooling tea. Each gesture, no matter how slight, carries an entire world of meaning. Mr. Whittaker asks if you ever play the pianoforte yourself. You nod. Only a little, you say, smiling modestly. Enough to please, I hope, but never to command attention. He smiles, his voice soft. That may be why your music would please more than most. You look down, pretending to adjust your bracelet, but a faint warmth rises to your cheeks. Compliments in this world must always be indirect, half-hidden, spoken as though they were accidents of politeness. But this one lingers in the air like perfume. Mrs. Linton rises soon after, signaling that the evening must draw to its gentle close. In this society, nothing lasts long enough to stir deep emotion. Even pleasure must be measured. Guests begin to stand, smoothing their gloves, adjusting their coats, offering the same phrases of gratitude that have been spoken 1,000 times before. As you walk them to the door, the sound of rain begins to fall, soft, rhythmic, the kind that hushes the city into sleep. The scent of it seeps through the air, fresh and faintly earthy. The carriages arrive in sequence, wheels splashing over wet cobblestones. When Mr. Whittaker takes his leave, he bows slightly, his expression calm yet kind. Your hospitality, he says, is as refined as your conversation. You incline your head. You are always welcome here, Mr. Whittaker. The words are simple, proper, and yet, as they pass your lips, you feel them pulse with something quiet but real. After the final guest departs, the parlor exhales. The lamps dim, the clock ticks louder in the silence, and the room itself seems to rest. You move to the pianoforte and brush your fingers across the cool ivory keys. One note hums, soft, pure, fading into the shadows. The servants begin their quiet work again, closing curtains, clearing cups, banking the fire. You listen to their footsteps as though they are part of the evening's music. The rhythm of the house feels alive around you, steady, constant, eternal. You linger by the window for a while, watching the rain streak the glass. The lamps outside shimmer through the droplets, their light trembling gently, like thoughts you'll never speak aloud. There's comfort in this stillness, in knowing that every emotion here is softened, wrapped in civility until it no longer threatens the calm. The fire sighs, the rain deepens, and the world fades into a muted lullaby of gold and gray. You turn away at last, your heart steady, your mind quiet. The night holds its breath, and the house, perfectly proper, perfectly peaceful, drifts once more into sleep. Morning light spills gently through the lace curtains, painting your room in a pattern of pale gold and white. Outside, the city is just waking, a soft chorus of footsteps, carriage wheels, and the distant whistle of a milkman greeting the dawn. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of coal smoke and early rain. You rise slowly, the hem of your gown whispering against the floorboards. There's a stillness to these early hours, a kind of hush that feels sacred, as though time itself pauses before the day begins its steady rhythm of propriety. On your small writing desk by the window, a stack of cream-colored envelopes waits, tied with a ribbon the color of faded lavender. Letter writing, in this world, is not a casual act. It is an art, the delicate bridge between sincerity and restraint. Words must be chosen like jewels, polished until they reflect meaning, without revealing too much of the heart. You untie the ribbon and take a seat. The chair creaks softly beneath you, the wood warm from the sunlight. A quill lies ready beside an inkwell of dark blue ink. You dip the tip gently, watching as a single drop trembles, then falls. The faint scratch of the quill against paper fills the air, a sound as rhythmic as breathing. Dear Mr. Whitaker, you begin, the letters forming in careful strokes, even now. The act feels almost forbidden, to write to a gentleman directly, even one who has called politely at your home. But the tone, the structure, the restraint, all these make the exchange acceptable. You write of neutral things, a recent sermon at church, the changing weather, the music that lingered after the last evening's gathering. Each line carries just enough warmth to be kind, but never enough to be bold. And yet, hidden between those lines, in the curl of an F, the hesitation before a comma, the lingering flourish at the end of a sentence, lives something unspoken, something even you barely dare to name. You pause for a moment, looking out the window. Across the street, a postboy on his bicycle delivers the morning's letters. The sound of the bell on his handle echoes faintly through the street. You imagine one of your letters in his satchel, a quiet message traveling through rain and fog to reach the right pair of hands. The Victorians believed that patience was a virtue, that everything worth having must come through endurance and restraint. You find yourself learning that lesson with every word, every sealed envelope, every day that passes without reply. When Mr. Whitaker's letters come, they are just as composed, filled with formal phrasing and delicate phrasing. He writes of literature, of the beauty of the countryside, of moral thought. Yet you can feel beneath the ink something warmer, a gentleness that hums like a note too low for polite ears to catch. You keep his letters in a small wooden box, hidden beneath folded linen. Sometimes, late at night when the house is asleep, you take them out and read by the light of a single candle. The flame flickers against the edges of the paper, and for a few quiet moments, the world feels very small. Just you, his words, and the silence that holds them. You never rush your replies. The delay itself is a kind of language, a pause that tells him you are thoughtful, not impulsive, that you value reflection, that you understand the art of waiting. Outside, the world continues in its calm order. Servants sweep the steps, carriages roll past, and in the distance a church bell rings the hour. The city breathes, steady and unchanging. You seal the envelope with a soft press of wax, the crimson seal glimmering as it cools. The wax smells faintly of rose oil, a detail no one else would notice but you. You hold the letter in your hands for a moment, feeling its quiet weight, then set it aside to be sent. There's a peculiar peace in knowing that a part of you, a thought, a breath, will soon travel through the misty streets, carried from one heartbeat to another. You stand by the window as the maid takes the letter to the post. The sky has turned silver with clouds. Somewhere, you imagine, another window opens. Another pair of hands will unfold a similar envelope. And for a brief instant, your two worlds will touch. Letter writing, you realize, is not about words alone. It's about rhythm, the pause between replies, the waiting, the wondering. It's about finding beauty in patience. As the afternoon wanes, you sit again at your desk, fingers resting on the edge of your quill. The paper before you is blank, luminous in the soft light. You breathe slowly, feeling the calm settle over you. That quiet joy of knowing that not everything in life must be hurried. Some things are meant to be slow, to unfold like dawn. Outside, the rain begins again, tapping softly against the glass. You watch each droplet slide down the pane, joining others until they flow as one. You smile faintly. The ink dries. The clock ticks on, and patience, that most Victorian of virtues, feels for once like peace. Sunday morning arrives with a hush unlike any other day. The city, usually alive with the pulse of industry and chatter, seems to hold its breath. The air is cool and still, carrying the faint scent of damp stone and distant church bells. Even the horses' hooves seem softened, their clatter subdued to respect the solemn quiet. You wake early, as always, the pale light of dawn seeping through the curtains. There is a kind of order to this morning, one dictated not by fashion or society, but by reverence. The servants move more softly, the clink of breakfast china subdued, their voices hushed. The world feels dressed in calm. You sit by your mirror as your maid pins your hair, her hands gentle and precise. The scent of lavender water lingers faintly as she ties the ribbon at your collar. Your Sunday dress is simpler, darker fabric, fewer embellishments. Even beauty on this day must bow to humility. The family gathers in the drawing room before church. Conversation is minimal, replaced by the rustle of newspapers, the faint turning of a prayer book's pages. Your father clears his throat once, a habit that signals it is time to depart. Outside, the air is crisp, almost cold. The clouds hang low and pearly, promising rain but withholding it, as though even the weather understands restraint. You walk to the carriage, careful not to soil your hem on the damp stone steps. The sound of your shoes against the pavement echoes softly, rhythmic as a heartbeat. The church stands tall and gray against the pale sky, its spire like a finger reaching upward in quiet longing. Inside, the scent of candle wax and polished wood greets you. The pews creak faintly as parishioners settle into place. All around you there is stillness, rows of bowed heads, the faint whisper of prayer, the sigh of fabric as someone shifts slightly. You lower yourself into your seat, the cushion cool beneath your palms. The organ begins to hum, low at first, then swelling into a slow, solemn melody that fills the space like a tide. The sound vibrates through you, deep and steady, as though it were reminding your heart how to beat in time with something larger. The sermon begins. The vicar's voice rises and falls, patient, deliberate. He speaks of virtue, of modesty, of the quiet strength of obedience. His words weave through the air, touching every corner of the sanctuary. You watch the dust motes drifting in the light that filters through the stained glass windows, red and blue and gold, like pieces of heaven scattered upon the floor. You think of the world outside, the noise, the ambitions, the gossip, and how small it feels in this vast quiet. Yet beneath your calm expression a flicker of unease stirs. For morality in this age is not simply about goodness. It is about perception, about how one appears, how one fits within the delicate machinery of expectation. A lady's virtue is her entire identity. To be whispered about is to fall. Even kindness, if misplaced, can be misread. The rules feel heavy sometimes, not cruel but constant, pressing upon your shoulders like the weight of invisible hands. When the final hymn begins, you rise with the others, your voice joining theirs in gentle harmony. The words are simple, old, eternal, about forgiveness, about grace. You don't sing loudly. No one does. In this world, even faith is practiced softly. After the service, the street outside is lined with polished carriages and clusters of polite conversation. Men lift their hats, women exchange practiced smiles. You hear phrases like, "A fine sermon today," and "Such a blessing to see you again," spoken with the same careful sincerity as every week before. Mr. Whitaker is there, of course, standing by the iron gate, his coat brushed clean, his gloves immaculate. When your eyes meet, he bows slightly. The exchange is small, almost invisible, yet your heart knows the warmth it carries. He does not approach. It would be improper here, but the acknowledgement is enough. In this world of restraint, a glance can feel like an embrace. The ride home is quiet. The sound of the horse's hooves rhythmically striking wet stone becomes almost meditative. Inside the carriage, your parents speak in low tones of the sermon's message, of righteousness, charity, the importance of decorum. You listen, half dreaming, watching the rain begin to trace thin lines across the window pane. Back home, the afternoon unfolds in stillness. Sunday is not for entertainment but reflection. The newspapers are set aside. The piano remains silent. Only the steady ticking of the clock and the faint hum of the fire accompany the hours. You sit by the window with your embroidery, the needle glinting in the dim light. Outside, the trees sway slightly in the breeze. You think again of morality, how it shapes every moment of your day, every word, every gesture. It is both a compass and a cage. Still, there is peace in it, a rhythm that holds the chaos of the world at bay. To live within these rules is to move gently, to let each day unfold without hurry. The evening comes softly, wrapped in gray. The lamps are lit, one by one, until the house glows like a quiet lantern against the fog. Supper is taken without fuss. Afterwards, your father reads from the scriptures, his voice deep and even. The verses seem to fill the air with calm, as if the walls themselves are listening. When you retire to your room, the world outside has vanished into mist. The church bell tolls in the distance. 1, 2, 3. Its sound a lullaby of solemn comfort. You change into your nightdress, the fabric cool against your skin. The air smells faintly of rain and the lingering smoke from the hearth downstairs. As you lie in bed, you think of the quiet dignity of the day, of its weight and its peace. Both inseparable. Perhaps morality, you think, is not only a burden but a structure, one that allows you to rest without fear of falling. You close your eyes. The night deepens. The city sleeps beneath its curtain of fog. And somewhere in the dark, another Sunday fades gently into history. Dawn has barely touched the sky when the first stirrings begin below stairs. You do not hear them at first. The world above remains cocooned in sleep. But deep in the belly of the house, life is already in motion. The servants move through shadow and quiet, their steps soft upon the worn stone floors. The air smells of coal dust and soap, of bread baking somewhere in the kitchen. A single candle flickers in the corridor, its flame trembling as though afraid of the draft. You are still asleep when the housemaid enters your room to stir the fire. Her movements are quick and practiced, every sound measured. The brush of the broom, the faint rattle of kindling, the whisper of fabric as she straightens the curtains, all performed with the care of someone who has done it 1,000 times. In the great machinery of a Victorian household, servants are its unseen gears. The comfort of your world, the warmth of the parlor, the shimmer of silver at dinner, the quiet order of every morning, exists only because of their tireless rhythm. Downstairs, the kitchen glows with the first light of the fire. The cook stands before the great iron range, her cheeks flushed, her sleeves rolled. Steam curls from the kettle, carrying the scent of tea leaves and yeast. The scullery maid scrubs at a pan, her hands red from cold water, her hair damp with mist. No one speaks much. Words are scarce in these early hours. There is comfort in routine, the same tasks, the same movements every day. The silence feels earned, necessary. By the time you rise, the house above has already been prepared. Fires lit, boots polished, curtains drawn back just enough to let the light fall in softly. Breakfast awaits in the dining room. Eggs, bread, tea, each item placed with exact precision. You take your seat, unaware that the maid had been awake since before dawn to ensure the eggs were perfectly soft. You do not think of the boy who fetched the milk from the yard, or the cook who stirred the pot over heat that bit her skin. This is not cruelty, it is custom. You were raised in a world where the distance between upstairs and below stairs feels natural, eternal. The servant's world is quiet by design, its invisibility part of the order that keeps everything calm. But if you were to listen closely, just for a moment, you would hear laughter below. In the servants' hall between duties, they share jokes whispered behind hands. They tell stories of the street, of loves lost, of small victories that make the long days bearable. Their world, though hidden, is alive with warmth. When the day stretches on, they climb the stairs with trays, dusters, and linens, their footsteps careful not to intrude. You nod to them in passing, offering polite smiles, and they curtsy in return. There is mutual respect, quiet, unspoken, shaped by centuries of habit. At night, when your family retires to bed, the servants' work is not yet done. They move through the house like shadows, setting the world right for tomorrow. Only when the last candle is extinguished, when every surface gleams and every clock is wound, do they rest. Their quarters are simple. Narrow beds, coarse blankets, the air heavy with the day's exhaustion. But there, away from the weight of etiquette, laughter sometimes echoes through the narrow halls. A song half-whispered softens the dark. You never hear it, but it lives beneath you, a rhythm, a life. The silent heartbeat of the house that never truly sleeps. And when you close your eyes that night, in your warm and quiet room, the world below stairs continues, unseen, enduring. Patient, the invisible pulse of Victorian grace. The morning sunlight is pale but clear, slipping through the tall windows of the drawing room and settling in golden pools upon the carpet. The scent of polish lingers in the air, the furniture gleaming, every surface prepared. Today is the day of the portrait. You stand before the mirror, the weight of your gown heavy upon your shoulders. Silk and lace fall in layers that shimmer faintly with each breath. Your mother adjusts the brooch at your collar, her hands firm but gentle. Her reflection meets yours, and for a moment you see not her face but the expectation it carries. Appearances in Victorian society are not vanity, they are survival. To be seen is to be judged, and to be judged favorably is to be secure. The family portrait is more than an image. It is proof of dignity, of harmony, of worth. Downstairs, the photographer waits, a solemn man with wire spectacles and a calm, deliberate voice. His camera, a dark wooden box on thin legs, faces the elegant set prepared before the hearth. The air smells faintly of chemicals and dust, of velvet curtains drawn close to soften the light. Your father takes his place first, his posture impeccable, his face composed into that blend of authority and gentleness expected of a gentleman. Your mother follows, serene, unyielding in poise. Then you and your siblings are positioned carefully, each movement guided by the photographer's precise gestures. Now hold still, he murmurs, adjusting the lens. Composure, please. A moment's stillness for eternity. You lift your chin slightly, your breath quiet, your expression soft but empty of thought. The seconds stretch. The world narrows to silence, to the faint whir of the shutter, to the sensation of being looked at, captured not as yourself, but as an ideal. When it is done, everyone exhales quietly. Your mother smooths your hair once more. The photographer nods, satisfied. The moment, perfect, contained, preserved. Later, when the photograph is ready, it will hang in the parlor above the mantel, framed in dark wood, polished weekly, admired by guests. People will see it and speak of refinement, of elegance, of good upbringing. They will not see the stiffness in your shoulders or the ache in your neck from holding still too long. Nor will they see the thoughts that flickered behind your calm expression, the fleeting wish to move, to laugh, to simply be. But that is not what portraits are for. They are mirrors not of people, but of ideals. As the day continues, you catch your reflection again. In the window pane, in the gleam of the polished table, in the quiet water of your tea. You realize that every reflection shows a version of you that belongs to someone else. Your family, your class, your society. And yet, there is a strange peace in this too. To live within formality is to live within certainty, every role defined, every gesture meaningful. You know who you are, or at least who you must be. That evening, the photograph is set aside to dry, the faint scent of chemicals still lingering. The house glows softly in the lamplight, each room humming with quiet satisfaction. You stand before the empty fireplace for a moment, feeling the calm return. The day has been long, but everything has gone as it should. Outside, the street is wrapped in fog again, gentle, endless, forgiving. And as the clock chimes the hour, you breathe deeply, letting the quiet perfection of the moment settle over you like a silk veil. For in this world, even stillness is an art, and appearance, a kind of truth. Spring has arrived, softly, politely, as though even the weather knows it must behave. The gray skies of winter have lifted, and London hums again with the rhythm of renewal. Flowers bloom in measured perfection along the garden paths, and the air smells faintly of lilac, horsehair, and rain on stone. It is the beginning of the season, that elegant, intricate dance of introductions, invitations, and appearances that defines the lives of those who belong to polite society. You wake to find a pale envelope on your breakfast plate, its seal pressed with the mark of Lady Fairlie's crest. A ball invitation. Your mother's eyes sparkle faintly as she reads it aloud, her voice composed but satisfied. Attendance is not optional. It is a declaration, a quiet affirmation that your family is seen, that your name still carries weight. For days, the household hums with preparation. Dressmakers arrive with bolts of silk and soft pastels. You stand patiently as they take your measurements, pins glinting between their lips, fabric whispering as it is drawn around your frame. Your mother debates colors, pale blue for modesty, ivory for refinement, perhaps lilac to flatter the complexion. Outside, the carriages rattle past, carrying other families through the same rituals. Everywhere, London seems to hold its breath in anticipation of the evenings to come. The lights, the music, the gentle chaos of controlled elegance. When the night finally arrives, the sky is a deep shade of violet, and the gas lamps burn golden in the fog. Your carriage rolls through the streets, its wheels clicking softly against the cobblestones. Inside, the scent of your mother's perfume mingles with starch and candle wax. As you approach the grand house, the sound of violins floats faintly through the air. The steps leading up to the entrance gleam like marble waves beneath the glow of the lamps. Servants in livery stand like statues, their expressions blank, but their eyes alert. Inside, the world unfolds in gold and crystal. The ballroom shimmers with candlelight, the chandeliers reflecting hundreds of tiny stars. The air hums with conversation, voices low and melodic, punctuated by laughter that never quite grows loud enough to break decorum. You enter with your mother, your father a few steps behind. Eyes turn discreetly as introductions begin. Names and titles swirl in a dance all their own. You curtsy, smile, murmur soft pleasantries, feeling the rustle of silk like the sound of waves on sand. The orchestra begins a waltz, and the floor comes alive with movement, a sea of gowns and gloves, of poised faces and gloved hands. You watch for a moment, feeling both enchanted and distant, as though you are looking through glass, and then, as if drawn by some quiet current, Mr. Whittaker appears. His bow is precise, his gaze calm but kind. He asks, softly, "May I have this dance?" You nod, feeling the faint flutter of your pulse. His hand finds yours, gloved, proper, barely touching, and the world shifts. You move together, slowly, gracefully, the floor turning beneath your feet like the surface of a still pond. The music flows around you, strings and woodwinds rising and falling in time with your breath. You do not speak much. You do not need to. Every movement, every glance carries its own language. Around you, the glittering room blurs. You notice the scent of wax, the faint warmth of his hand through the fabric, the steady rhythm of your steps. For the first time in a long while, the rules of society feel like something softer. Not chains, but choreography. When the waltz ends, he leads you back to your place with a bow. No words are exchanged, yet something lingers between you, an understanding calm and deep that exists only in silence. As the night drifts on, you watch the candles burn lower, their flames swaying like tired dancers. The music softens, the laughter grows quiet. By the time you step back into the cool night air, London feels hushed, as though even the stars are resting. In the carriage home, your mother speaks of appearances, who was there, who was not, who looked suitably refined. You listen, half present, your thoughts elsewhere, still turning gently to the memory of the waltz, the steady rhythm of it, the peace. And as the city slides past your window, you realize that beneath all the ceremony and expectation, there lies something enduring, the quiet wish to be seen not just as part of a picture, but as a person. The ball is over. The season continues, and the night, calm, endless, tender, carries you home. The following morning begins in stillness, though you feel the hum of invisible energy in the air. The ball, with its elegance and candlelight, is over, but its echoes remain. In Victorian society, every word spoken, every glance exchanged, becomes part of a delicate, unseen web that stretches across drawing rooms and parishes alike. You sit at the breakfast table, sunlight filtering through the lace curtains, a cup of tea cooling beside you. The newspaper lies folded untouched. Your father reads in silence. Your mother leafs through correspondence. On her face rests that careful composure that hides calculation. Which invitations to accept, which acquaintances to encourage, which to avoid. Reputation, you have learned, is not built in grand gestures but in the smallest of impressions. It is a tapestry woven from whispers. The day after a ball is often when the real dance begins. Across London, people murmur about who danced with whom, whose gown was exquisite, whose behavior faltered. Every parlor becomes a court, every hostess a judge. Your mother glances at you once, her eyes thoughtful. "Mr. Whittaker danced with you twice, did he not?" You nod. The second dance had not been planned, yet it felt inevitable. "Then," she says, setting down her cup, "we must be careful, careful. The word carries weight, for affection when seen by the wrong eyes can be misread as impropriety. Interest can become presumption. In this world, even kindness must be measured to avoid gossip's teeth. You spend the afternoon visiting a neighbor. The parlor there is small, the wallpaper faded, but the tea is good and the company kind. Conversation begins innocently enough. The weather, the church bazaar, the arrival of spring, but slowly, inevitably, turns to talk of the season. "I heard," one lady says softly, her voice like silk drawn across glass, that Mr. Whitaker seemed much taken with the daughter of Mr. Elwood. Her eyes flick toward you, quick, assessing. You smile faintly, your pulse steady, your answer calm. "He is a kind gentleman, yes. I imagine he shows courtesy to everyone." The other women nod, satisfied. The moment passes. But you feel the faint sting of awareness, how one sentence, one tone, could shift the air around you. By evening, you return home, the city around you bathed in gold. The gas lamps have begun to flicker alive, the sound of carriage wheels echoing against the stones. You find a letter waiting upon the table, a simple envelope, unmarked except for your name. Inside, a short note. "I hope the evening did not tire you too much. The dance was a memory I shall keep. W." You read it twice, your breath slow. The words are simple, proper, unassuming. Yet beneath them, you hear what cannot be said aloud. You fold the letter carefully and hide it with the others, tucked beneath the lining of a drawer. Away from curious eyes, reputation, after all, is a fragile thing. That night, you sit by the fire, the clock ticking softly in the quiet room. You think of how easily one's life can be defined by the thoughts of others. And yet, you also think of how gently a heart can resist, how truth can exist in silence. Waiting, unspoken but alive. The flames waver. The shadows lengthen and the calm returns. You sip your tea, eyes half closed, letting the warmth settle through you. Outside, the fog thickens again, wrapping the world in soft, forgiving gray. In this society, you realize the most enduring strength is quiet, the ability to remain composed when the world whispers. You smile faintly, feeling the peace of that knowledge. The clock chimes the hour. The house exhales, and the night, as always, forgives everything. The day unfolds with a softness that only the late afternoon can bring. Sunlight drifts through the lace curtains, scattering gentle patterns across the polished wood floors. The house is still, except for the faint ticking of a clock somewhere down the hall and the quiet creak of settling beams. It is time for tea. You descend the staircase slowly, one hand grazing the smooth banister, the faint scent of bergamot already reaching you. In the Victorian world, afternoon tea is not merely a meal, it is a ceremony, a quiet rehearsal of grace and manners. Every movement, every word must be as measured as the pouring of milk into the cup. In the parlor, your mother oversees the table. A silver teapot gleaming beneath the light, fine porcelain cups arranged with precision, small sandwiches cut into perfect triangles. Beside them, a plate of warm scones rests beneath a linen cloth, the faint steam carrying the smell of butter and flour. You take your seat, the fabric of your dress rustling softly. The chair creaks slightly beneath your weight, not in protest, but as if acknowledging the rhythm of the ritual. Your mother begins to pour. The stream of amber liquid falls in a delicate arc, steam rising and curling like the breath of the house itself. The scent fills the room, mingling with faint traces of lavender from the curtains. Across from you sits a guest, Mrs. Weatherby, a distant acquaintance with sharp eyes but a gentle voice. She stirs her tea slowly, spoon clinking softly against porcelain. Conversation flows in gentle currents. The topics are familiar. The weather, the success of last week's charity bazaar, a neighbor's daughter soon to be engaged. But beneath the politeness lies an undercurrent of quiet scrutiny. Each sentence is balanced carefully, every silence meaningful. You smile when spoken to, offer soft replies, nod at the right intervals. The entire moment feels suspended in amber, calm, precise, endlessly repeating. At times, the conversation falters, leaving space for the sounds that live between words. The faint hum of the street outside, the distant call of a vendor, the rhythmic ticking of the clock. These moments are not uncomfortable. They are part of the peace, a shared silence that needs no apology. When the tea is gone, the conversation shifts gently to reflection. Mrs. Weatherby speaks of her youth, of long summers in the countryside, of dances under starlit skies, of letters written by candlelight. Her voice carries the faint tremor of nostalgia, and you find yourself listening with unexpected tenderness. In her words, you hear an echo of your own heart, that quiet longing for something beyond propriety, something as simple as the freedom to breathe without expectation. When she leaves, the parlor grows still again. Your mother collects the empty cups, her expression unreadable but calm. You help her in silence, folding the cloths, straightening the spoons. As the sun dips lower, the room fills with golden light. Dust motes float lazily in the air, catching the glow like tiny stars. You pause, hands still, and watch them drift. There is a kind of holiness in these small rituals, in the quiet grace of doing something well, of allowing peace to be enough. Outside, a horse passes down the lane, its hooves muffled by the damp earth. The world feels distant, softened, safe. You breathe in deeply. The scent of tea, the faint perfume of flowers, the ghost of warmth lingering in the porcelain. And as the light fades, you realize that not every moment of meaning comes from change or passion. Some exist simply to remind you of calm, of stillness, of gentleness, of the rhythm of your own quiet heart. Evening approaches, the world exhales, and peace, once again, finds its place at your table. The morning begins with the rustle of paper, a sound both delicate and dangerous. On the silver tray by the door lies a small stack of envelopes, their edges faintly yellowed from damp air. Each bears its own story, a friend's inquiry, a cousin's invitation, a merchant's polite reminder, and there near the bottom is one written in a familiar, careful hand. You pause. The ink is deep black, the address elegantly slanted. Your heart gives a quiet, steady beat. You take the letter to your room. The door clicks shut behind you and the world falls away. Outside, a soft drizzle taps against the window panes, a gentle percussion of privacy. With slow hands, you break the seal. I trust you are well. The air here is cooler than I expected, and yet I find I miss the warmth of conversation. London feels hollow without its company. I hope your days are kind to you. W. The words are simple, polite, the kind anyone might send. But beneath them lies the echo of that waltz, the shared silence of that evening, the lingering thread of something unspoken. You trace the ink lightly with your fingertip, feeling the faint pressure of his pen. There is something strangely intimate in knowing the very strokes that shape the words, the rhythm of his hand, the pauses of his breath. A breeze slips through the window, cool and damp, carrying the scent of rain-soaked earth. You fold the letter, pressing it close for a moment before tucking it into your drawer, the same hidden place where the first note rests. Letters, you have learned, are both bridges and burdens. They connect and conceal, offer and restrain. In a society where words must always be measured, a letter is both freedom and risk. Later at dinner you say nothing. The table gleams with polished silver, and the lamps glow softly beneath their shades. Your father speaks of business, your mother of plans for the coming week. Their voices drift in gentle rhythm, a background hum to your quiet thoughts. When the meal ends, you walk into the garden. The rain has stopped, leaving the air damp and sweet. The scent of roses mingles with the earth, and the world feels newly washed. You stand beneath the wrought iron arch, eyes half closed, listening to the faint chirp of evening birds. Somewhere far away, a carriage wheel turns, and in that moment, you think of how fragile human connection can be, how easily it hides behind formality, how often it survives only in the spaces between sentences. You open your eyes and look toward the horizon, where the last streaks of light fade into gray. The air grows cooler. A droplet of rain slides down a leaf, landing softly at your feet. You whisper the last line of the letter aloud, letting it dissolve into the quiet. I hope your days are kind to you. And as the sky darkens, you feel the truth of it, that kindness, like love, need not be declared to be real. Sometimes it simply exists in silence, patient and enduring. The evening deepens. The garden breathes, and somewhere in the distance, another letter is already being written. Morning arrives not with birdsong, but with the soft thud of boots and the muted clatter of crockery. Downstairs, the servants' hall hums with life long before the drawing room stirs. You hear them faintly through the floorboards, the rhythm of daily labor that keeps the great house breathing. It is still dim when you rise, the light pale and watery, seeping through gauze curtains. Somewhere below, a kettle whistles. The air smells faintly of soap, coal dust, and freshly baked bread. You wrap your shawl tighter and pause by the window, watching a footman cross the courtyard, his breath ghosting in the morning chill. The Victorian household is a machine of quiet precision, its elegance built on the unseen endurance of others. For every polished teacup and neatly folded napkin, there is a pair of hands that shape the perfection you take for granted. Later that morning, you descend the back staircase, the narrow one, meant for servants and family only in emergencies. It smells of starch and wood polish, its walls lined with plain plaster instead of silk. You do not belong here, not truly, but something in you wants to understand the heartbeat that thrums beneath your own world. In the kitchen, warmth greets you immediately, the embrace of heat from the great iron range. Copper pots hang from their hooks like small suns, and the air vibrates with the sound of chopping, scraping, stirring. Mrs. Talbot, the cook, looks up in mild surprise. Her face is flushed from work, her hands dusted with flour. "Miss Elwood," she says softly, half in greeting, half in question. You smile, stepping carefully between the baskets of vegetables. "Good morning, Mrs. Talbot. I hope I'm not interrupting." "Never, miss," she replies, though her tone carries the faintest hint of confusion. "Just preparing for luncheon." At the long wooden table, two maids polish silver in steady silence. The footman folds napkins into crisp triangles. The butler inspects the linens for imperfections. It is an orchestra of effort, each motion deliberate and disciplined. You take a moment to watch, feeling strangely humbled by their efficiency. There is no grandeur here, only quiet pride. These are lives built on repetition, on precision, on devotion to tasks that vanish the moment they are completed, only to begin again tomorrow. One of the maids, barely older than you, catches your glance and offers a small smile. Her hands move quickly, the cloth whispering against the spoon's surface until it gleams. You notice her eyes, calm, unresentful, steady. You remember the times you've seen her moving silently through the drawing room, setting tea trays or trimming lamps. Always unseen, always essential. Mrs. Talbot offers you a scone, warm from the oven. "Fresh, miss," she says, a little proud. "Best eaten hot." You take it, the crust crisp, the inside soft and fragrant with butter. The warmth seeps through your fingers, grounding you. For a brief moment, class and propriety dissolve into something simpler, the shared comfort of bread and kindness. As you leave, you pause in the narrow hallway. The sound of laughter drifts up from behind, soft, private, genuine. It echoes faintly up the stairs, mingling with the creak of floorboards and the ticking of the clock. You realize then that this world beneath yours, this quiet, humming undercurrent, holds its own rhythm, its own joys and weariness. The great house may belong to your family, but it is the servants who make it live. When you step back into the main hall, the air feels colder, emptier. The marble gleams, untouched by the warmth below. You move through it silently, the memory of the kitchen's heat still clinging to your skin. In the drawing room, your mother is arranging flowers. She looks up, faintly puzzled. "You've been up early," she remarks. "Yes," you answer softly. "Just listening to the house." She smiles absently, returning to her task. But you keep the thought to yourself, that sometimes the truest voices in a home are the ones that are never meant to be heard. You sit near the window, sunlight now bright across your lap. Somewhere below, the bell rings, calling the servants to task again, and you, hearing it, find peace in the knowledge that life, in all its layers, moves together, each heartbeat echoing softly beneath the next. The day stretches onward, calm and measured, and the house breathes on. The next afternoon finds you far from the quiet order of home. You sit in a carriage, the city unfolding beyond the glass, London in its restless, growing sprawl. The streets pulse with movement. Coal smoke hangs in the air like a heavy curtain, blurring the rooftops and dulling the light. The scent is sharp, metallic, almost bitter. It clings to your gloves, your hair, your breath. Factories loom in the distance, their chimneys spilling endless gray into the sky. You can hear them even from here, the constant hum of machinery, the dull pounding of engines, the hiss of steam. It is the heartbeat of progress, your father calls it. Your mother, seated beside you, keeps her eyes fixed on the street ahead.
"We are fortunate," she says softly, "to live apart from this." You nod.
Though your gaze lingers on the people outside, men with soot-streaked faces, women in worn shawls hurrying through the fog, children darting between carts with baskets in their arms. Their lives seem to move in quick, urgent rhythm, while yours unfolds in stillness and ceremony. As the carriage slows near the docks, you catch sight of the river, the Thames, wide and dark, its surface rippling with the reflections of cranes and barges. The air smells of tar, smoke, and salt. Your father has business here, investments, shipments, numbers that translate to comfort upstairs and hunger down below. You step out, your boots crunching on gravel, and the noise swells around you. Shouts, the clang of metal, the creak of ropes. A boy, no older than 10, hurries past carrying a heavy crate. His clothes are ragged, his hands raw. He glances at you, just for a moment, and in his eyes there is neither resentment nor awe, only the steady, practiced endurance of someone who has known labor all his life. You stand still, the bustle of industry whirling around you. The fog thickens, swallowing the outlines of ships. Your mother draws her shawl closer, murmuring something about filth. But you hardly hear. For the first time, you feel the immensity of the distance between two worlds, one polished and perfumed, the other grim and unyielding. Yet both depend upon each other, bound by invisible threads of need and necessity. When you return home that evening, the sky is streaked with soot and crimson, the sunset blurred by the haze. The servants light the lamps, the parlor glows again with gentility, and the city's noise fades behind closed doors. You sit by the window, watching the smoke drift upward into the deepening dusk. Somewhere beyond that gray veil, the factories continue to roar. The workers continue to labor, and you wonder, as the fire crackles and tea is poured, whether progress, in all its triumphs, is worth the silence it demands from those beneath it. The thought lingers, quiet but insistent as night settles softly over the city. You close your eyes, breathing in the faint scent of coal that has followed you home. The world feels both vast and intimate, a single, endless breath shared between comfort and struggle, and as the lamps flicker low, you whisper a small, wordless wish for balance, for light to find its way through the smoke. The fire sighs, the city hums, and you drift into stillness, between two worlds, listening to both. The day dawns gray and heavy, as though the sky itself has drawn a veil of grief across the world. You wake to the slow toll of a church bell, low, deliberate, unhurried. Somewhere nearby a curtain has been drawn shut. A neighbor, perhaps. Someone's loss has become the morning's quiet companion. In Victorian society, mourning is not only an emotion, it is a language, one written in black crepe and silence, in the precise tilt of a hat and the restrained depth of a sigh. It dictates the color of one's wardrobe, the tone of one's correspondence, the very rhythm of one's existence. Your mother appears at breakfast already dressed in muted shades, black silk with a soft sheen, a small jet brooch at her collar. She stirs her tea without speaking, the spoon moving in slow, hypnotic circles. "Mrs. Langley passed in the night," she says finally, her voice calm, the words measured. "You remember Mrs. Langley? Kind eyes, pale hands, laughter that always seemed too light for her frail frame." You nod quietly, unsure what to say. The house takes on its own hush. Flowers are removed from the drawing room. The piano, so often alive with melody, remains closed. Even the servants walk softer, their footsteps wrapped in respect. Later that afternoon, you find yourself in your room, standing before the mirror. The black dress you wear feels unfamiliar, heavier than it should, almost solemn in its embrace. You adjust the collar, watching the fabric absorb the light. In the streets, mourning attire is everywhere. Women in long veils, men with black bands around their sleeves. Even the shop windows acknowledge loss, displaying ribbons and jewelry carved from jet, symbols of remembrance made beautiful. When you visit the Langley house, the parlor is draped in dark fabric, the mirrors covered so the soul may not lose its way. The air smells faintly of lilies and beeswax. You move softly through the space, offering words of comfort that sound small against the stillness. Mrs. Langley's daughter stands by the hearth, her face pale but composed. She speaks gently, thanking each guest, her voice breaking only once, not loudly, not dramatically, but in the smallest tremor of breath. You take her hand, and in that moment, no words are needed. Grief, after all, speaks most clearly in silence. That evening, as you walk home, the sky deepens to a bruised purple. The lamps flicker to life one by one, their glow soft against the growing dark. You feel the cool wind through your gloves and hear the faint rustle of morning veils in the streets. There is a strange beauty in it, this collective tenderness, this public ritual of sorrow. It is not simply sadness, but reverence, an acknowledgement that to lose is to have loved deeply. When you return home, your mother is by the fire, darning quietly. She looks up, her face softened by the light. "Grief teaches us patience," she murmurs almost to herself. "It reminds us of what endures." You sit beside her, the clock ticking softly, the world outside muted by fog. In your heart, sorrow settles not as pain, but as calm, a still water reflecting the memory of someone gone, yet not forgotten. The fire pops once, sending a small ember spiraling upward before it fades. You breathe deeply, letting the warmth fill the space where words cannot reach. And as night closes around you, you understand, and mourning is not the end of love, but its quiet continuation. Sunday arrives with a hush unlike any other day. The streets, so often filled with clatter and motion, lie softened beneath a blanket of quiet. Even the air feels slower, gentler, as though it too has chosen to rest. You wake to the sound of distant church bells, deep, resonant, and steady. Their tones roll across the rooftops like waves of devotion, calling each household to stillness. The house is calm. The usual morning bustle has eased into quiet order. Breakfast is lighter, tea, eggs, bread, and conversation softer, touched by reflection. Even laughter, when it comes, is subdued, as though wrapped in respect for the day's peace. You dress with care, buttoning your gloves, straightening your bonnet. The fabric is modest, the color gentle. Outside, the air is crisp and faintly scented with chimney smoke. The street glistens with dew, and the light, filtered through thin clouds, has the softness of pearl. Your family walks together to church, the rhythm of your steps blending with those of your neighbors. Around you, others move the same way, slow, composed, respectful. Horses' hooves sound muffled against the damp ground, and the only voices are those carried in low conversation or whispered greeting. The church rises before you, tall, solemn, its stone walls touched by age. Inside, the air holds the faint perfume of wax and old wood. Sunlight filters through the stained glass, casting pools of color across the floor. Crimson, blue, gold. You find your seat. The pew creaks gently beneath you. Around you, people bow their heads, hands clasped, breath steady. The organ begins to play. A deep, trembling sound that fills every corner of the space, reverent and vast. The vicar's voice is calm, deliberate. He speaks of grace, of patience, of the quiet strength found in humility. You listen, not for instruction, but for rhythm, the steady cadence that soothes like the sound of distant rain. When the hymn begins, you rise with the others. The words flow softly from every voice, mingling into something greater than song, a collective exhale of faith and memory. You feel the vibration of it in your chest, the comfort of unity. After the service, the congregation spills into the churchyard. The air smells of wet grass and stone. Families exchange greetings, children dart between gravestones, their laughter light and unburdened. You linger for a moment, tracing your fingers along the carved name of someone long gone. The moss is cool beneath your touch, the letters softened by time. You do not know this person, yet you feel a quiet kinship, a recognition that every life, no matter how distant, once held the same breath, the same light. As you walk home, the sound of bells fades behind you, replaced by the gentle murmur of life resuming. Windows open, fires are stoked, and the smell of Sunday roast begins to drift through the air. In the afternoon, the family gathers in the drawing room. The curtains sway with the breeze, and the world outside glows in pale gold. You sit with a book on your lap, though you do not read. Instead, you listen, to the soft tick of the clock, to your father's steady breath as he naps, to your mother's gentle humming as she sews. It is peace, not loud or joyous, but deep and enduring. A kind of stillness that feels like prayer without words. As evening settles, the candles are lit, their flames trembling softly. The city grows quiet once more. You look toward the window and think of how each Sunday seems to pause time, reminding you that even in a world bound by rules and routine, there remains a space for grace. The bells in the distance toll once more, faint but clear, and in that sound, slow, solemn, endless, you feel the week close like a chapter, and peace take its gentle place again. The morning air is cool and tender, the kind that carries the scent of dew and the faint sweetness of early blossoms. You step into the garden just as the sun breaks the horizon, pale gold spilling over trimmed hedges and beds of roses, still heavy with moisture. Here, in this quiet place behind the house, the rules of society soften. Speech becomes unnecessary. Silence, a kind of conversation. The gravel path crunches gently beneath your boots. You move slowly, breathing in the stillness, the faint hum of bees, the distant coo of doves from the rooftop. Each flower seems to bow slightly in greeting as you pass, each leaf whispering secrets only the wind can carry. Victorian gardens are not wild. They are disciplined beauty, curated serenity, yet within their borders lies something uncontainable, a rhythm of life that continues quietly, without permission or pretense. You pause near the rose bushes, where petals of crimson and cream unfold in perfect symmetry. Their scent rises like a memory, delicate, lingering, impossible to name. You reach out, careful not to touch the thorns, and watch a droplet of dew tremble at the tip of a leaf before falling soundlessly into the soil. In this era, flowers carry meaning beyond beauty. They speak a language older than words, one of emotion disguised as arrangement. A violet for modesty, a daisy for innocence, a white rose for purity, a red one for love. Every bouquet becomes a poem, every bloom a whisper of what cannot be spoken aloud. You recall the time Mr. Whitaker handed you a small sprig of forget-me-nots after a walk in the park. So simple a gesture, yet so heavy with meaning. You still keep them. Pressed between the pages of your journal, fragile and blue, their scent long faded but their message eternal. As you walk deeper into the garden, you find your mother among the lilies, pruning with careful precision. "Morning, my dear," she says softly without looking up. The snip of her shears keeps time with her words. The hydrangeas are taking well this year. You kneel beside her, feeling the damp earth through your gloves. "It's peaceful here," you murmur. She nods, eyes still on her work. "The garden listens," she says after a moment. When the world feels too loud, it reminds you to breathe. For a while, neither of you speaks. The two of you work side by side, trimming, arranging, tending. It is not labor. It is meditation. The scent of soil and growing things fills your lungs, grounding you when at last you rise. The garden glows in the full light of morning, orderly, alive, perfect in its imperfection. You realize that the flowers, though rooted, live by a quiet bravery. They do not choose where they are planted, yet they bloom all the same. That thought stays with you as you return to the house, wiping a trace of earth from your hands. Sometimes you think people are not so different from gardens. They grow best when they are cared for, when they are seen, when they are allowed to be still. The air drifts through the open window as you pour your morning tea, carrying the scent of roses and earth. The cup warms your hands, and in that calm, sunlit moment, you understand that growth need not be loud to be real. It can happen quietly, in the spaces between breaths, between days. The afternoon light slants low and golden through the tall windows, dust motes dancing lazily in its path. The house is quiet, your mother resting, the servants gone about their work, the hours stretching wide and unhurried. You find yourself drawn upward, to the place few ever go, the attic. It is a space both forgotten and alive, suspended between the past and the present. The stairs creak beneath your feet as you ascend, the air growing cooler, tinged with the faint scent of cedar and age. When you open the small door at the top, a wave of stillness greets you. Shafts of light filter through the tiny window, illuminating the shapes of old trunks, covered chairs, and framed portraits draped in cloth. You move carefully, your footsteps muffled by the layer of dust carpeting the floor. Each object feels like a story paused mid-sentence. A trunk stands open in the corner. Inside, neatly folded linens yellowed with time, a child's wooden toy, a handful of letters tied with faded ribbon. You lift one gently, the paper fragile beneath your fingertips. The handwriting is elegant, familiar in its era's formal curves. The ink, though faded, still carries the echo of emotion. My dearest Eliza, the days grow colder here, and I find myself thinking of home more often than I should. You stop reading. The words belong to someone else. A life lived and ended long before yours. Yet somehow they reach across the decades, whispering of love, of waiting, of all that never found closure. You continue your quiet exploration. A mirror leans against the wall, its surface clouded with age. When you wipe it clean with your sleeve, your reflection appears dim and ghost-like, as if the glass remembers more than it shows. A child's rocking horse sits nearby, its paint chipped, its saddle worn smooth. You give it a gentle push and it moves once, creaking softly before falling still. The sound seems almost like a sigh. The attic is not haunted by spirits, but by tenderness, by the weight of time pressing softly against everything it once touched. Here the noise of the present cannot reach. Only memory speaks. You sit on an old chest and let the quiet settle around you. Dust swirls in the slanting light. Somewhere below, faintly, a clock strikes the hour. You think of how every generation leaves behind small traces, the shape of a letter, the hem of a dress, the faint perfume clinging to lace. These remnants become bridges between the living and the gone, between what was known and what can only be imagined. When you finally rise to leave, you take nothing with you. Only the feeling, that memory, even when silent, has its own heartbeat. As you close the door, the last sliver of sunlight slips across the floor, touching the old wooden chest before fading. You descend the stairs slowly, the coolness of the attic still clinging to you like a ghost of thought. Back in your room, the air feels warmer, the world more immediate, and yet you cannot shake the sense that the past, too, lives quietly beside you, breathing through the walls, waiting to be remembered. You sit by the window, watching dusk unfold, and in that moment, you understand that history is not something behind you, it is beneath you, above you, within you, resting, waiting, whispering. The past never leaves, it only changes its voice. The evening unfolds softly, wrapping the house in the tender hush that comes just before lamplight. Outside, the last glow of the sun lingers at the edge of the horizon, a faded lavender sky that deepens to indigo. You sit at your writing desk, its surface smooth and cool beneath your fingertips, a single candle flickering at its center. The small flame dances, casting gentle shadows across the paper before you. The ink bottle stands ready, the quill trimmed and poised. There is a familiar rhythm to this moment, the preparation, the pause, the slow breath before the first word. Letter writing, in your time, is not simply communication. It is ceremony, a bridge across silence, an offering of thought. Each stroke of the pen carries weight, and each pause feels sacred. You dip the quill, watch the ink glisten darkly, and begin. My dearest friend, the words appear smooth and steady, though your hand trembles just slightly. The scent of wax and old paper fills the room, grounding you in the present even as your mind drifts toward the person far away, the one who will unfold this letter days, perhaps weeks from now. You write of the weather, of the latest books you've read, of the quiet rhythm of the household. But beneath those lines lies something unspoken, a yearning, a reaching through time and distance. You remember the last letter you received, how the postman's knock had startled you, how the sealed envelope had felt heavier than paper should. There had been words of warmth inside, of missing your company, of the hope to see you again by summer's end. Now as you write, you imagine the journey this new letter will take, carried by train through valleys and towns, stacked among hundreds of others, traveling beneath stars and through storms until it reaches the right hands. You pause, lift your head, and listen. The night outside has settled into silence, the kind that hums gently, like the air itself is dreaming. The soft tick of the clock and the far-off hoot of an owl are the only sounds. You return to your letter. Do you ever think of the garden? You write, the way the lilies open only after dusk? I often sit among them and wonder if the air carries my thoughts to you. The quill scratches lightly, steady and unhurried. The ink dries into graceful shapes, the curve of each word deliberate and patient. When you finish, you blot the page carefully, then fold it with precision, as though folding a secret into silence. The wax seal presses warm against your thumb, the emblem imprinting your name into the smooth red surface. You place the letter aside and lean back, letting your gaze drift to the window. The moon has risen now, soft and distant, lighting the trees in pale silver. Somewhere, someone else is writing too, you think, their candle flickering, their hand steadying their heart the way yours does now. In this age, letters are lifelines, whispers between souls separated by circumstance, bound by patience. The waiting becomes a rhythm, the silence a kind of trust. You let the candle burn low, the scent of melted wax sweet in the cooling air. And as the night deepens, you smile faintly, knowing that even in the stillness, connection travels, unseen but certain, across miles and through dreams. For in every letter lies a promise that you are remembered, and that time, though slow, can still carry hope. It is a night of soft rain and gentle laughter, the kind of night that feels almost like a painting, edges blurred, light diffused, hearts lightened by the simplicity of shared company. The annual lantern walk has begun, and the street glows in a soft parade of color. Candles flicker inside paper shades of amber, rose, and pale blue, their reflections trembling in puddles that line the cobblestone road. You walk among them, your gloved hands wrapped around a lantern of your own, its warmth seeping through to your skin, its light swaying softly with your every step. The air is cool, tinged with the smell of damp earth and rain-soaked wood. You can hear the rustle of skirts, the low murmur of conversation, the occasional burst of laughter that echoes against the narrow stone walls. Children run ahead, their laughter bright as bells, their small lanterns swinging wildly. Older couples stroll arm in arm, their pace unhurried, as though time itself has slowed for this one tender evening. Above, clouds drift past the moon, parting now and then to reveal silver light that glances off rooftops and wet leaves. You walk beside Mr. Whitaker tonight, though neither of you has spoken much since the walk began. Words feel unnecessary. The quiet between you is companionable, filled with the shared rhythm of footsteps and rain. When you glance his way, the lantern light catches his face, softened, thoughtful. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he says quietly, his voice nearly blending with the sound of drizzle. You nod. It feels as if the whole world has decided to move slower for a while. He smiles, the kind of smile that warms more than any fire could. "Perhaps it's telling us to listen," he says. Not to the noise, but to the space between it. You both fall silent again, and it's true. When you listen closely, there's music in the stillness. The dripping of rain from the eaves, the faint hum of distant conversation, the rhythmic steps of the crowd. As you walk, the lanterns seem to breathe, a living current of light and warmth winding its way through the damp night. You pass the bakery, its windows fogged from the heat of fresh bread. The scent escapes as someone opens the door, sweet yeasty comfort that mingles with the cool rain. You inhale deeply, letting it linger. Moments like this remind you that even amid formality and restraint, the Victorians knew how to celebrate the simple grace of gathering, of being seen and sharing silence without demand. The walk leads through the square and into the park, where puddles reflect hundreds of tiny lights, as though the stars themselves have fallen to earth. There, at the pond's edge, people begin to set their lanterns afloat. One by one, the small glowing orbs drift across the water, their reflections rippling gently with the rain. You kneel and place yours on the surface. The paper shimmers with candlelight as it drifts slowly away, joining the others, a constellation on the dark water. Mr. Whitaker watches, his voice soft. "Do you ever think how beautiful small things can be?" You look out across the pond, at the drifting lights, the whisper of rain, the shimmer of breath on the air. "All the time," you say, and in that moment, nothing feels hurried. Nothing feels distant. Just the quiet warmth of being part of something. Together. Luminous fleeting. As the lanterns drift farther, their glow fading into the mist, you feel the night settle around you like a comforting shawl. You close your eyes, listening to the hush between raindrops, and let the peace of it sink in. For even in the smallest light, you think, there lives the whole world's gentleness. The morning is still, one of those rare, fragile mornings when the air seems made of silk, and the world hesitates before fully waking. A soft fog lingers over the town, shrouding chimneys and rooftops in pale gray. Somewhere a church bell tolls the hour,
its low note carrying through the mist like a sigh. You stand by the window, your breath faint against the cool glass, watching the outlines of carriages emerge and disappear in the street below. Everything feels muted. The clatter of hooves softened, the calls of vendors distant and dim. It is as though the day itself has agreed to move gently, respectfully. The house is quieter than usual. Downstairs, the fire has burned low, and the faint smell of ash mingles with the morning's damp chill. The servants speak in hushed tones. Even the floorboards seem reluctant to creak. Today is a day of parting, the world beyond your window, the one of parlors and polite conversation, of calling cards and lace gloves, feels as though it is slipping quietly into memory. The Victorian age, with all its precision and restraint, is beginning to fade like a photograph left too long in the sun. You move slowly through the house, touching the backs of chairs, the edge of the piano, the polished wood of the banister. Every detail feels significant, imbued with the weight of all the moments that unfolded here. The laughter at dinners, the quiet evenings of reading, the faint notes of piano drifting through open doors. When you reach the parlor, you pause. The room is bathed in soft light, filtered through lace curtains. Dust motes float lazily, suspended in the golden air. The portraits on the wall, stern ancestors with composed expressions, seem to watch you, as if aware that something sacred is ending. You sit in your familiar chair by the fireplace, the fabric worn smooth by years of habit. The teacup on the side table still bears a faint ring from yesterday's brew. Everything around you feels both present and already gone. The clock ticks softly. The sound is steady, soothing. It reminds you that even as eras end, time continues, gentle, unjudging, infinite. You think of all that this time has given and taken, the quiet dignity of manners, the hidden ache of rules too rigid to breathe in, the beauty of letters and gardens, of lamplight and lace. You think of Mr. Whitaker, whose lantern drifted beside yours on that rain-washed night. You think of the letters that crossed oceans, the moments of silence that spoke more than words. Each memory arrives like a breath, brief, tender, complete. You rise and walk toward the door, pausing only to take one last look around. The air seems to hold its breath. You whisper a quiet thank you, unsure whether it's to the house, to the time itself, or to the person you have become within it. Outside, the fog begins to lift. The sun pushes through, pale but steady, touching the cobblestones with light. You pull your shawl tighter around your shoulders and step out. The street feels different now. New sounds fill it, the distant hiss of machinery, the hum of a changing world. Somewhere a motor car passes, its unfamiliar rumble echoing between the buildings. The air smells faintly of coal and rain and something else, something new, something coming. You walk slowly, the hem of your dress brushing the damp stones. Around you, the town stirs, shopkeepers lifting shutters, children chasing after one another, a man tipping his hat in greeting. Life, steady and indifferent, moves forward. You realize then that history does not end. It transforms. The world you knew folds quietly into the world that will be. The lace gives way to linen, the candle to the electric bulb, the quill to the typewriter. Yet beneath it all, the same heartbeat continues. The human desire to connect, to hope, to leave something behind. As you reach the edge of the square, the morning light finally breaks free of the fog. You stop and lift your face to it, eyes closed, letting its warmth sink into your skin. And for the first time you feel no fear of what comes next, only gratitude for what has been, and for the quiet beauty of knowing you were part of it. The breeze shifts, carrying with it the faintest scent of roses from a nearby garden. You smile softly, thinking of the lessons the flowers once taught you. To grow where you are planted, to bloom even in shadow, to fade gently when the season ends. As you walk on, your steps blend with the rhythm of the street, with life itself, continuous and calm, and so the Victorian world drifts behind you like mist, leaving only the gentle echo of its grace. You breathe in once more, the air, the light, the quiet hum of a changing age, and let it all settle deep within you. For though the era ends, its spirit remains soft, patient, eternal, and in that silence, the story of it, your story, finds its rest.